Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Peace be upon you, and God's mercy and blessings. Imagine disappearing without a trace, to the point where your family at home believes you have passed away. But one day you return, feeling as though you were only gone for 7 days. And you bring with you a chest filled with payment from a feast in an unseen world. Before we lose ourselves in this story full of wisdom, let's flood the comment section with prayers, shalawat, for our Prophet Muhammad peace be upon him. Please write, Allahumma shalli, ala Sayyidina Muhammad. May every letter we type be a witness to our love and add weight to our scale of good deeds to help us attain his intercession in the hereafter. Amen. Your support, friends, by pressing the like and subscribe buttons also means a great deal in helping us spread more dawah, Islamic teachings, and Islamic stories which, inshallah, God willing, will become a field of ongoing charity for us all. The story begins when, in a small village surrounded by green rice paddies in a corner of Banyuwangi, lived an old woman named Mbok Jum. She was old in years, but her spirit never waned. In the mornings, she was a vegetable seller at the market, offering produce from her garden with a friendly smile always etched upon her wrinkled face. From afternoon until night, her humble home would be filled with the voices of young children learning to recite the Quran. Mbok Jum was a patient and respected Quran teacher in her village. Her life was calm and peaceful, like the flow of the river behind her house. One night, after she had finished teaching and the children had gone home, the tranquility of the evening was slightly disturbed. A soft knock was heard on her front door. Mbok Jum, who was tidying up her holy books at the time, was a little startled. Who could be visiting so late? Slowly, she walked over and opened the door. Before her stood 2 men she didn't recognize, dressed in neat, traditional Javanese attire. Behind them was a carriage pulled by a jet-black horse, looking majestic in the dim moonlight. One of the men spoke in a very polite tone. "Excuse us, Mbok. We've been sent to pick you up. There is a grand celebration in the village across the way, and the host is very much hoping you can come and help in the kitchen." Mbok Jum furrowed her brow. A village across the way. A grand celebration. She hadn't heard any news of a major event in the neighboring village. "What kind of celebration, son? And why me?" she asked with a tone of surprise. The man smiled again. "Just a regular feast, Mbok. But it will be very lively. Don't you worry, it's only for 7 days and 7 nights. Everything will be taken care of. You only need to bring a few changes of clothes." There was something strange about this invitation, something that made the hairs on her neck stand up. However, seeing the politeness of the 2 messengers and the promise of a lively celebration, her heart, which was always eager to help, relented. Perhaps this was Allah's way of giving her a little adventure in her remaining years. Without much more thought, she went inside, grabbed a few pieces of her traditional garments, and wrapped them in a batik cloth. When she returned to the door, the carriage seemed to be waiting for her impatiently. She climbed into the carriage, assisted by one of the men. The carriage then began to move slowly, leaving her slumbering village behind, traveling down a dark path lit only by a small, swaying lantern on its side. The farther they went, the more foreign the familiar path became. The bamboo trees on either side of the road seemed to bow, creating a dark, seemingly endless tunnel. Mbok Jum began to feel that something was wrong. The warmth of her village was now replaced by a bone-chilling cold. She did not know that this promised 7-day journey would become the longest journey of her life. The journey through the darkness felt incredibly long, yet strangely, Mbok Jum did not feel the slightest bit sleepy. Suddenly, from a distance, she began to see a brilliant light that shattered the thick of the night. As they drew closer, the lively chatter of people and the sweet melody of gamelan music began to reach her ears. The carriage she was in finally stopped in front of a magnificent gate made of intricate teakwood carvings. Above the gate, words were inscribed in an ancient Javanese script that she could not decipher. The scene before her was truly beyond anything she could have imagined. It was a feast so grand and luxurious, far more magnificent than anything she had ever witnessed in her entire life. Giant tents were lined up neatly, adorned with thousands of flowers of every color that spread a fragrant aroma. Countless coconut oil lamps cast a warm, golden glow. Hundreds of people milled about, dressed in their finest clothes, laughing and chatting joyfully. There was a large stage where a wayang kulit, shadow puppet performance was in progress, with a skilled puppeteer, Dalong, deftly manipulating each character. Mbok Jum was guided to the back, to a makeshift kitchen of equally impressive size. Dozens of stoves were ablaze, with massive cauldrons on top of them constantly billowing steam from various delicious dishes. Dozens of women, just like her, were busy at work. Some were peeling onions, some were mixing spices, and others were stirring the contents of the cauldrons. Strangely, she didn't recognize a single face. However, they all welcomed her with friendly smiles, as if they had known her for a long time. "Come, Mbok, please join us," greeted a middle-aged woman, handing her a knife and a cutting board. Mbok Jum immediately set to work. She peeled vegetables, chopped meat, and helped with whatever she could. Time seemed to pass incredibly quickly in this place. Day, noon, and night seemed to merge into one. There was no sense of fatigue, only a spirit of diligence and a desire to be part of the celebration's excitement. Food and drink were always available in abundance. Whenever she felt hungry, a delicious meal was always served. Whenever she felt thirsty, a refreshing drink was always offered. The host of the feast was a very kind and cheerful middle-aged man. Every day he would visit the kitchen to ensure all his workers were well and lacked nothing. But one thing made Mbok Jum curious. Whenever she tried to ask which village they were from, or what celebration was actually being held, everyone would simply smile and give a vague reply. "Just enjoy the party, Mbok." Then, on the fourth night, the atmosphere of the party grew even more festive. The wayang kulit performance that evening felt more special. Suddenly, in the middle of the show, the puppeteer paused his story. The gamelan music shifted, becoming more majestic. Everyone present, including the workers in the kitchen, was asked to stand and pay their respects. From the main gate, a handsome man with a tall, commanding presence appeared. His face. Mbok Jum couldn't see it clearly. It seemed to radiate a light so bright it was dazzling, yet his aura emanated extraordinary charisma and tranquility. All eyes were fixed on him, full of admiration and reverence. The mysterious man walked slowly through the crowd, and his steps halted, right in front of Mbok Jum, who stood frozen among the other kitchen workers. The radiant man gazed straight at Mbok Jum. The surrounding crowd fell silent in an instant. Even the gamelan music stopped completely. Only the whisper of the night wind could be heard. Mbok Jum lowered her head, not daring to meet a gaze that felt as though it pierced her very soul. Her heart pounded in her chest, a mix of fear and awe. Then the man spoke. His voice was not loud, yet it was clear and echoed throughout the entire party area. "What you wish for will be granted, Mbok. You only need to be patient and follow whatever orders are given here. Continue to work with a sincere heart. Later, when you return home, what you desire will be waiting for you." After saying those words, the man smiled, a smile that for some reason felt incredibly calming. He then turned and walked towards the seat of honor that had been prepared for him. Instantly, the gamelan music started again, more festive than before. The party continued. Mbok Jum remained standing, frozen, trying to process every word she had just heard. A wish. A desire. All this time, she had simply lived her life in acceptance, never offering up grand prayers or wishes beyond health and safety for her family. The mysterious message kept ringing in her ears, raising 1,000 questions in her mind. Who was that man? And why did he choose to speak to her? The next 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. The party reached its peak with various artistic performances that Mbok Jum had never seen before. There were beautiful dances and a captivating kuda lumping, horse trance dance show. She continued to work in the kitchen, but her mind never strayed from the radiant man and his mysterious message. Finally, the 7th day arrived, the last day of the feast. That morning the atmosphere felt different. There was no more lively gamelan music. Many of the guests had already gone home. The workers began to clean up the remnants of the party. Bok Jum packed the few pieces of clothing she had brought, preparing to go home. Her heart felt a little sad to leave this festivity, but she also deeply missed her home and family. The host then came to see her, his face beaming. "Thank you so much for your help all this time, Bok. We were greatly helped by your presence here." He then ordered 2 of his guards to bring a medium-sized wooden chest. The chest looked old yet very sturdy, made of teakwood with dragon carvings on its sides. "This is your payment, Bok. Please accept it. But I beg you, do not open this chest until you are truly home. On the journey, I fear a wicked person might see it." Bok Jum accepted the chest. Felt incredibly heavy. She could only nod and express her gratitude. The carriage that would take her home was already waiting at the gate. Before climbing in, she glanced back, looking at the scene of the party which was now becoming deserted. Strangely, the grand puppet stage, the giant tents, all seemed to have vanished, swallowed by the morning mist. All that was visible was a vast, empty field. Only the carved teakwood gate still stood firm. It was then, just before she stepped through the gate, that her eyes caught the Javanese script above it more clearly. The inscription read, "Sugeng Rao Alas Gumitir. Welcome Gumitir Forest." A shiver ran down her spine as she read the inscription. Alas Gumitir. The Gumitir Forest. Wasn't that the name of a notoriously haunted forest, located far from her village? Before Bok Jum could ask any more questions, the coachman guided her onto the carriage. It began to move again, entering the tunnel of bamboo trees that now felt darker and more menacing. The journey home felt much quicker. Before long, she could see the rows of houses in her village, still shrouded in the morning mist. The carriage stopped right in front of her small hut. "We have arrived, Mbok," said the coachman. Bok Jum got down, clutching the heavy wooden chest. "Mater Nguyen and Ake, thank you, son," she said. She turned, about to walk to her door, but when she glanced back at the road, the carriage and the 2 mysterious men had vanished without a trace. There was no sound of hooves, no sound of carriage wheels. They were simply gone, as if swallowed by the earth. Bok Jum shook her head, trying to dismiss the strange thoughts. Perhaps she was just overly tired. With a heart full of joy and impatience to see her family, she knocked on her door. "Kulanawin. I'm home," she called out. There was silence for a moment. Then the sound of footsteps came from within. The door opened, and her young grandson stood on the threshold. The boy stared at her with wide eyes. His face deathly pale as if he were looking at a ghost. His mouth hung open but no sound came out. "Oh, what's wrong with you, my dear? Why so shocked to see your grandmother home?" Bok Jum greeted him with a smile. Instead of answering, the grandson let out a hysterical scream. "Simbok! Simbok Muley! Grandma! Grandma's home!" and ran back inside the house. A moment later, Bok Jum's adult children emerged from their rooms with panicked faces. Their reactions were the same, if not more intense. They all fell silent, frozen, staring at Bok Jum from head to toe. One of her sons even slapped his own cheeks, as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. "Mother! Is it truly you, Mother?" her eldest daughter asked, her voice trembling as tears began to well up in her eyes. She stepped forward slowly, touching Bok Jum's arm, feeling her face, to confirm that her mother was real. Bok Jum became incredibly confused. "What is wrong with all of you? Course it's me. I was only gone for 7 days to help with a feast. Why are you welcoming me like this?" At that, all her children burst into tears. They hugged her tightly, but their cries were not of joy, but of heart-wrenching sorrow, the cries of people who had lost all hope and then suddenly found it again. 7 days, Mother," her youngest son said between sobs. 7 days by what measure? Bok Jum looked at her children one by one, her confusion reaching its peak. "Yes, 7 days. How long have I been gone?" Her eldest daughter shook her head forcefully, her tears now flowing freely. She gripped her mother's shoulders tightly, looked deep into her eyes, and said in a voice that was hoarse and full of pain, "Mother, We have already held the 7th day, the 40th day, and even the 100th day Talalan memorial prayers, for you. Mother. You have been gone for almost 11 months. Mbok Jum's world seemed to collapse upon hearing those words. 11 months. It was impossible. It felt like only yesterday that she had left, only yesterday that she had experienced the magnificent feast in the Gumitir forest. Her head spun and her legs grew weak. She sank to the floor, her gaze vacant. Her children told her everything that had happened. How they had frantically searched for her throughout the entire village, asking everyone, combing the market where she used to sell, but to no avail. How they had eventually resigned themselves, believing their mother had fallen victim to a crime or been taken by supernatural beings. They showed her a calendar that had already flipped to a new year, tangible proof of the time that had left her behind. The news of Mbok Jum's return spread faster than the wind. In an instant, her small house was filled with curious neighbors. The village head and several village elders also attended, wanting to hear this unbelievable story firsthand. With a voice still trembling, Mbok Jum recounted everything. The mysterious invitation, the black horse carriage, the grand 7-day feast, the radiant man, and finally, the gate bearing the name Alas Gumitir. Some of the villagers whispered amongst themselves, believing Mbok Jum had lost her mind. The village elders, however, especially those who understood supernatural matters, remained silent. Their faces held serious expressions, as if they had heard similar tales before. One of the elders said, Mbok Jum is a chosen one. Not just anyone can enter the unseen village of Gumitir forest and return safely. Everyone's attention then turned to the heavy wooden chest placed in the middle of the room. The chest seemed to be the only tangible proof of Mbok Jum's surreal journey. What's inside it, mother? Asked her son, his curiosity overcoming his fear. The host said this was my payment, Mbok Jum answered softly. And he said I was not to open it until I was home. You are home now, Mbok, the village head replied wisely. Let us open it together. Whatever is inside, we will face it together. With her son's help, Mbok Jum shifted the chest in front of her. Everyone in the room held their breath, their eyes fixed on the dragon-carved teakwood chest. The air in the room grew heavy with anticipation. With a trembling hand, Mbok Jum reached out. Her wrinkled fingers touched the cold surface of the wood. She took a deep breath, and then with a single motion, she lifted the heavy lid. The sound of creaking old hinges shattered the tense silence. As the chest's lid opened, everyone who had gathered around gasped in unison. A reddish glow reflected from within the chest, illuminating faces filled with astonishment and disbelief. The once silent room was now filled with murmurs of awe. Inside the chest, neatly stacked, were piles of banknotes. Not just any money, but sheets of 100,000 rupiah notes, a currency of immense value at that time. The amount was so vast it filled the wooden chest to its brim. The distinct scent of new paper wafted out, proof that this was no illusion. Mbok Jum's son picked up a stack of the money with trembling hands. He flipped through the notes, feeling them with his fingers. They felt real. The village head also came to inspect them. He was the most knowledgeable in worldly affairs among them. After a careful observation, he nodded slowly. This money is real, he said in a heavy voice, shattering all doubt. Every single note is genuine. Instantly, the villagers' perception of Mbok Jum changed. The old woman they had considered strange just moments before was now regarded with immense respect and awe. Her story about her journey to the Gumitir forest was no longer seen as the ramblings of a senile mind, but as a blessing, a tangible miracle. She had been chosen to be a guest in another world and had returned with an immeasurable blessing. Just as the radiant man at the feast had said, the wishes of Mbok Jum and her family seemed to be fulfilled. Their previous hand-to-mouth existence was completely transformed. They used the money from the chest very wisely. They bought several plots of fertile rice paddies, built pens for raising goats and chickens behind their house, and renovated their small hut into a more proper home. Mbok Jum no longer had to struggle to sell vegetables at the market. In her remaining years, she could focus entirely on teaching the children to recite the Quran, sharing her knowledge in peace without having to worry about her livelihood. She became a more respected figure, not just for her wealth, but for her extraordinary experience, which became living proof that another world exists beyond human reason, a world where sincerity and patience will always be rewarded in kind. The wooden chest was now empty, but its blessings continued to flow, serving as an eternal reminder of the 7-day journey that had actually lasted for 11 months. Years have passed since that magical event. The story of Mbok Jum and her journey to the Gumitir forest has become a legend throughout the village, told from mouth to mouth, from one generation to the next. Mbok Jum's family lived in prosperity, but they never lost their humility. They remained a family that was humble, diligent in giving charity, and always ready to help others, exactly as Mbok Jum had always taught them. And this is where I enter the story. I am a traveler, a friend of Mbok Jum's grandson, who happened to stop by the village on one of my journeys. Naturally, I heard the legend, and I was eager to meet the main character in person. My friend was happy to arrange a meeting for me with his grandmother, who was now very elderly. I sat respectfully before Mbok Jum. Her face was etched with many more wrinkles, but her eyes still radiated a clear light of wisdom. I listened to the story directly from her lips. She told it calmly, without exaggeration, as if narrating a dream she once had. After she finished her story, she looked at me intently. Every journey in this life is a spiritual trial, my son. There will be times when Allah breaks your spirit and tests your patience so that you will remember Him. Never be arrogant about what you possess, and make your heart like an empty glass, always ready to receive lessons from anyone you meet. That advice struck me directly in the heart. Then Mbok Jum went into her room for a moment. When she returned, she extended her wrinkled palm towards me. Resting on it was a small black stone, no bigger than a thumb. Its shape was ordinary, like a common river stone. "Take this," she said softly. "Keep it in your house as well if a dry season ever arrives. Some people here believe this stone can keep the water from ever running out. Consider it a memento from an old woman." I accepted the black stone. It felt cool and smooth in my hand. I didn't know whether to believe it or not, but I accepted it as a sign of respect and gratitude for her precious advice. Little did I realize that this small, ordinary-looking stone would be the beginning of another small miracle, an epilogue to Mbok Jum's mystical journey that had, in some way, become intertwined with the destiny of my own life's journey. I took my leave from the village, continuing my journey with Mbok Jum's wise advice in my heart and the small black stone in my bag. To be honest, I didn't give much thought to the stone's supposed properties. At my house, the well water was always abundant, even during the dry season. I simply kept it in my wardrobe, among a pile of clothes, as a souvenir from a memorable journey. Some time later it was my friend's turn, Mbok Jum's grandson, to visit me. As he was about to return to his village, I remembered the black stone. I felt that the stone more rightly belonged in its place of origin. I took it from the wardrobe, wrapped it in a clean white cloth, and handed it to my friend. "Please return this to your grandmother," I said. "Here, Alhamdulillah, praise be to God, we never lack for water. Perhaps this stone will be more useful there." My friend accepted the bundle and promised to deliver it to his grandmother. He then went home. Few days later my phone rang. It was my friend. His voice sounded panicked and confused. "Brother, the stone is gone," he said. "Gone how?" I asked, not understanding. "I don't know. The cloth bundle is still here, but the stone is gone from inside. And I know I kept it securely in my bag." When I told her, "Your grandmother just smiled," he explained, his voice full of anxiety. I was confused too. How could the stone just disappear from inside a tied bundle? Out of curiosity, after hanging up the phone, I casually opened my wardrobe, the place where I had first stored the stone. My hand reached into the deepest corner of the wardrobe, between the folds of old fabrics. And there I felt it, that small, cool and smooth object. I pulled it out and stared at it in the palm of my hand. The black stone had returned. It was right back in its original spot, as if it had never gone anywhere. I could only stand there in silence, contemplating yet another event that was beyond the reach of my reason. That stone, just like Mbok Jum's story, was the silent proof of an unseen world that runs parallel to our own, with its own rules and its own wonders. The extraordinary journey experienced by Mbok Jum, from her disappearance for 11 months that felt like only 7 days, to the unexpected blessings she brought home, is not merely a mystical tale. Within it lies profound wisdom for those of us willing to reflect. The lessons that can be drawn from this story are: the limitless power of Alas Gumitir. The events experienced by Mbok Jum, where time passed differently and she entered an unseen realm, serve as a reminder that the power of Allah encompasses all things. What is impossible for human reason is effortless for him. Allah is the master of all universes, both the seen, Alam Sayahada, and the unseen, Gabe. The importance of patience, sabar, and sincerity, ikhlas, in facing trials. Mbok Jum lived her difficult life during that time with complete patience and sincerity. She never complained and continued to worship and do good deeds. Her sincerity in helping at the feast in Gumitir forest, without expecting anything in return, became the key to receiving aid. This teaches us that every sincere good deed will ultimately return to ourselves. Sustenance, riziki, from unexpected sources. Amidst economic hardship and life's trials, Mbok Jum performed spiritual discipline, tirakat, and surrendered herself to the Creator. Help came to her not through ordinary means, but through a supernatural event that led her to abundant sustenance. This is tangible proof of Allah's promise to His pious servants. This story affirms the truth of Alas Gumitir's words in the Quran, specifically in Surah At-Talaq, verses 2-3, which state, meaning, "And whoever fears Allah, He will make for him a way out, and will provide for him from where he does not expect. And whoever relies upon Allah, then He is sufficient for him." This verse directly frames Mbok Jum's entire experience. Her piety became the reason Allah provided her with a way out from her difficulties, and the chest filled with money was the sustenance from a source she could never imagine. Ultimately, this story invites us to strengthen our conviction that behind every difficulty, there is always ease, and that Allah's help for His servants who are patient, sincere, and who put their trust in Him will never be late, even if it sometimes arrives in the most mysterious of ways. Thus concludes the extraordinary story of Mbok Jum, a reminder for us all that patience, sincerity, and full faith in Allah's help will always bear sweet fruit, often in ways we could never have expected. I hope we can all draw valuable lessons from this story. Thank you everyone for listening from the beginning to the end. If you feel you have benefited from this story, don't hesitate to press the like button and share this video with your family and friends, so that its wisdom may spread even wider. For those who have just joined us, please subscribe and turn on the notification bell so we can continue to learn together through other inspiring stories. In closing, may we all always be under the protection of Alas Gumitir and be given the strength to face every trial in life. See you in the next video. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.